Who are the mentally retarded? They are people. They come in both sexes and in all sizes, shapes, creeds, and colors. Wherever people live, there also live the mentally retarded.
You dumb, lard-ass, ludtard morons. You still don't get that the answer is the communication of spiritual knowledge and the communication of natural law and objective morality to the mindless, fucktard, zombie horde masses of this fucking planet.
What up, everybody? Harrison here, the Arabian Pleb. Welcome to Chronicles of the Great Retardation. I'm here with my good friend, one of my best friends, Cosmic Surfer. And we are bringing to you another episode, another Chronicle. I believe this is Chronicle 11. And if you listen really carefully, you may hear the sounds of the spirits, the sounds of beautiful positive energy being directed straight at you through the YouTubes and whatever other streaming platforms you may be listening to this. And here's the man of the minute. How are you, brother?
Very good, thank you, brother. Thanks for coming. We have some sound bowls, we have some serpentine, we have some peridot, and we have some rose quartz coming to you from the sacred mountain, Caterpillar Dreaming. Feel the vibrations, my friends. This is the direct transmission of the objective truth. Coming at you. How you on, dude?
Good, man. Good. I don't know if the audio was being picked up of the vibrations of the sound bowls there. I was trying to listen out for it. But anyway, when we listen back to it,
it's coming through my cells. That's okay.
Perfect. I'm good, man. I'm really good, dude. We were having a brief chat beforehand. We got a lot of life stuff going on, which I'm really keen to get into with you and get your perspective on a bunch of different things and hear what you've been up to and life and all that stuff. And I've got a couple of little clips queued up that I'd love to show you. You haven't seen these, so just for the audience, anyone listening to this, Cosmic Surfer hasn't seen any of these things that I'm about to show you, and so we're going to get his sort of live reaction to it. And yeah, I'm keen to just put it out there and get all you beautiful people out there who listen to us to see what you think of it as well. But it's an interview with Robbie the Fire Bernstein, the co-host from Dave Smith's Part of the Problem, interviewing Scott Horton and asking him a couple of questions. One specifically around Israel and Iran, and as we speak right now, Israel is bombing Iran, bombing their nuclear facilities. So it's pretty full on. And then the other question is a bit more of a question that I think Scott Horton doesn't like to really opine on too often, but to do with the conspiracy around 9/11 and specifically Building 7, which I've always had a lot of questions. Like, I really love Scott Horton's work, but then when it comes to kind of like, Building 7, I think there's some question marks around there, and even the towers themselves, whatever. But yeah, I think Scott does great work in terms of like explaining the foreign policy missteps and antagonizing attitude from the United States to sort of the Muslim world in the Middle East. But then there's some other question marks that I don't think he's has the best answer for. But anyway, we'll get into it.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. And then in the after the second half of that, we can yeah, we can get into some more nitty gritty personal stuff based on the great work, and we can talk about real life, my friend. I just listened to Will Keller and Chris Jansen talking about the Renaissance man, and talking a little bit about masculinity and man skills, and taking action, and learning how to swing a hammer and fix little things. And I've got a lot going on there that I can share. It's been a humbling week, I'll say. You know, really today's actually Friday the 13th, and you know, been going through some shadow work stuff, and also applying the great work to life, and things that coming around ego and victim mentality that I can share about. And also with the true media and the great work, sort of going beyond just saying what the principles are, and like and kind of reflecting and kind of applying it to our life. And I guess I want to do a bit of sharing with you on that, and maybe talk that through, have a bit of a chin wag, mate. And it's maybe a little bit different than what we've done previously, but I also want to kind of open up a little bit and take people on this journey with us about what it means as we kind of learn these principles and apply it. And kind of, it's not pretty, I'll say. Like, it's kind of, some of the themes that come up are like dark night of the soul, and doesn't have to be that, but like kind of around taking a good hard look at yourself, and not wallowing in all of the things that you aren't doing or you're not doing well enough, but just kind of really taking kind of like a not a harsh, but it can be harsh, but like just an objective look at oneself, realizing the state that you're in, and kind of the steps that you can work on, and the things that you can do, and the way that we can pass through that. And I kind of want to impress upon people that it's not always pretty, and it's not glorious, and it's hard work, and it's messy, and you know um, to kind of acknowledge in yourself that maybe you have been in ego, or maybe um, you've got different things going on. Maybe you're can communicate clearer, or maybe you can get your point across without being argumentative. There's kind of a lot of these kind of things that can happen, especially as we learn to engage and share messages to a wider audience, and in public and in socials as well. Um, and it also reminds me, a little bit about the plant medicine journey that I've been on, and kind of the integration work, and those kind of things, because I guess one of the things is that, um, yeah, I've kind of touched on it a little bit. Like, that kind of path can be rewarding if you do the hard yards, and kind of go through that messiness, but you've really got to face things head on, as uncomfortable as they may be, and ignoring things and kind of pushing them back to later, or kind of like not really giving it your full attention, that can have repercussions. And you've touched on that briefly, as well, with some of the stuff going on with your house. And funnily enough, I've got plenty going on with my houses too. And so we can get into that in the second half, if you like, or if you wanted to get into what you wanted to get into now.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to all of that. Why don't we first just get it out of the way, Scotty boy, my man, because I think just like just with what's happening with Israel bombing Iran, it's like literally happening right now. So yeah, I think is that okay, man? Like if we just play,
Absolutely.
yeah,
So what's
cool.
so before we can you give some context on the situation and what's actually happening before we get into that?
Yeah, for sure, dude. So basically, like what the situation, like as it stands, is that so Trump had been and his team had been negotiating with the Iranians directly, and basically trying to get some sort of a nuclear deal back on the table. And interestingly enough, the previous nuclear deal, the JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, is what that stands for, was was a deal that the Obama administration had negotiated in 2015, and basically that deal was it was pretty much like a political, theatrical sort of, like, I don't know, that's probably not the best way to put it. It was basically like a political stunt to try and take war off the table because Israel had been pushing the Americans to bomb Iran and have been for like a long time. And like there's a long history of the Israelis and different governments, not just Benjamin Netanyahu, but Ehud Barak and previous prime ministers that were really pushing for what's his name? Sharon. So during like 2001, 9/11 happens, and then the Israeli government at the time, which I believe was Sharon Peres, I think I might have that wrong, but anyway, we can look it up. But whoever the prime minister was at the time, when 9/11 happened, the first thing the Israelis said was, "It's time to bomb Iran. We've got to go attack Iran first." And the Americans are going, no. We want to get Saddam Hussein. We want to exploit this and go get Saddam and convince them that this will be good for you guys as well, right? So there's a long history of Israel having animosity with Iran, pretty much pretty much since the mid 90s, really. And not to get too deep in the weeds, but prior to that, Israel and Iran actually got along really well, and Israel used to supply Iran with weapons, but that's a whole nother thing. That was during the 80s. But anyway, so since the 90s, they've had animosity with Iran, and then in 2015, Obama signs the JCPOA with the Iranians, which were basically had all these what Scott Horton refers to as like sunset agreements. So they were agreements that would expire and would have to be re-ratified again, and that was a little bit of a poison pill, so to speak, because as soon as a new administration came in, they can just tear it up or choose to not ratify the agreement, and that's effectively what happened with Trump. But so the agreement was that Iran would cease enriching uranium above a certain level, and that they would that they weren't allowed to have a uranium stockpile. So any of their uranium, because they have a natural, they mine uranium, they have a natural like supply in the ground of uranium that they can dig up, and so it makes sense for the Iranians to have like a civilian nuclear facility to meet their civilian electricity needs, and they have a lot of oil as well, but they can sell their oil on the market and mine their own deposits of uranium and use that to satisfy their electricity needs, right? Because there's not much demand for uranium on the market, so they can sell their oil, use their uranium to do their civilian stuff, and so the deal, part of the JCPOA, was that they would send their uranium to France. France would then make fuel rods with the uranium and then send it back to Iran, and that was to get around so that they wouldn't be stockpiling uranium and potentially enriching it. So to get uranium to weapons grade, it has to be above 90% enrichment, and for civilian purposes, it's like less than 10%. So there's a big gap between what would be considered like what would be needed for just like, powering a hospital and powering just like heating people's homes versus making a crude bomb. And this is something that Scott sort of gets into, which I do appreciate, even though I know there's we're of the belief that like just nuclear weapons in general are obsolete given the technologies that is actually in possession of these governments, like particularly the Americans and whatnot, and probably the Chinese and whatever else. But just that aside, the uranium can only make like an atom bomb, which is like they're the types of bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Very crude, not very sophisticated nuclear bombs that the Russians say and the Americans have today, where they can, they actually, and Scott gets into this, but it's actually plutonium that's needed to make H-bomb, hydrogen bombs, that then they can miniaturize and manufacture into a small warhead and fit that onto a missile, onto like a Tomahawk cruise missile. So anyway, so basically, all of that just to say that Obama made a deal. Trump tore that deal up, and then now Trump's second time around, he's trying to like basically put another deal in place, and it's pretty psychotic because it's like, well, then why'd you fucking rip the deal up in the first place? It's very like Trump egotistical crap where it's like, oh, but Obama did that, and Obama's the worst deal maker in the world, and if I had made that deal, it would have been a much better deal, it would have been bigly better, all that crap. So he just like basically wants to like shift a few paragraphs around and be like, there we go, like it's now my deal, I've got my name to it, and blah blah blah. So that's what had been going on since Trump coming to power the second time round. And then the Israelis don't want this. They don't want the Americans and the Iranians to get along, because from their perspective, that's like bad for Israel, for many reasons. We can like get into all that, but like they want to drive a wedge between America and Iran, because if they get on too well, as Trita Parsi puts in his book that I've got back there, Treacherous Alliance, he makes the case that like if the Americans and the Iranians are to like get along well, then that's like that then Israel is in like they fear that they're going to be expendable, that like, well, then there's no reason for America and Israel to have such a tight-knit relationship, because a lot of it is predicated on the animosity between Israel and Iran, and that like the way that their whole strategy for demonizing Iran and getting America to also not get along with them was that, in their words, it would be new glue for the alliance. And it sounds like crazy and whatever else, but like, what's the saying? It's like, I don't know, but anyway, like it's in their eyes, it's like helpful to have this enemy, and they think that that's beneficial to them and the United States, staying in a relationship, having a good relationship with Israel. So yeah, that's pretty much where it's at. And then now Israel is like sabotaging Trump's attempt and his envoy's attempt to sign this deal by just like preemptively striking them as we speak.
Got it. Thanks for the context.
My pleasure,
So,
man.
we can just watch a video, but I guess my first question is, we've known that Israel wants war with Iran, and also they've been trying to, well, I guess the US or the Western Alliance has been trying to make something happen there for a long time. But then at least the narrative was that, okay, we don't actually want that war, that will be the worst thing ever. And then also maybe it's just fluff, but then there's also a narrative of pushing back on Israel, starting that war for their own interests against the interests of the American people. So while this is going on now, has it all just gone away in terms of like, I thought that we weren't going to do this, and like, all of that anti-Israel warmongering mentality?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a good question, man. I'm not too sure. Like a lot of people I've just seen on Twitter this morning, a lot of people are predicting, and I don't know that they're right about this, but they think that like Trump's going to be pissed off with Benjamin Netanyahu for sort of doing an end run around him and sabotaging these negotiations. But like, I don't know, man. Like it's very hard to sort of know the like.
Okay.
The effect of it all. But I will say too, sorry, because I forgot to mention that like the reason why I was saying it's like political, it's just sort of this like political, what's the word? It's just like political nonsense.
Posturing.
Yeah, posture, or like just even the Obama deal, the nuclear deal that Obama, the JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, even that was just like, none of it was necessary because Iran already is a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. They already have regular inspections by the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, and they already are in compliance with all of the inspection regimes, like the inspections from the IAEA. They come and regularly inspect their nuclear facilities. They make sure that they're not enriching uranium above civilian, what would be necessary for civilian purposes. And they have already been. They're a wide open book. They show all of their stuff. They don't have. They're not. There's no like secret weapons production happening at all. But that's the constant accusation from the Israelis that, like, no, they're 3 days from making a bomb. They're 4 months from making a nuclear weapon. That all this sort of stuff. So, like, that's what I mean. Like when I was saying that the JCPOA was just to take war off the table. It was just like some additional, some additional like inspections. That were already going on. Like, it wasn't going to be able to prove anything that they already didn't know. Like, that's the only way I can put it, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's watch the video, hey?
Cool, man. Cool. Let's do it. All right, so...
nukes. They got so much oil there. Why do they, like, what is their rationale for why they need nuclear? Because they try and pretend, hey, this is not nukes. We just want to be have nuclear energy. But
Well, I think that's mostly true, right? I mean, they have a natural supply of uranium in their country, so they want to mine that, refine it, and run their electricity program on that and sell their oil on the market. Now, at the same time, and I think more importantly, it's a latent nuclear deterrent, right?
You mean that there will always be a breakout period, so even if they don't currently have a nuke, don't go to war with them because they're always a year away from being able to arm up.
And because a war with them would not guarantee a successful regime change, and then they'll just build a new facility under a darker, deeper mountain complex, and they'll build a nuke then. So this is really the standout. So first of all, on the latent nuclear deterrent, this is the same as Brazil, Japan, and Germany, where they have proven that they have mastered the fuel cycle. They have civilian nuclear programs. They're inspected and safeguarded and declared and whatever. And everybody knows they can make a nuke. So, for like example, in Japan, they've got an anti-nuke culture since they got nuked. And they have a bigger already thermonuclear armed power in China next door. Hey, those people are in a real hurry. I know exactly how they feel. But China's not threatening them. So essentially their diplomatic body language to China here is, look, just don't threaten me. And then I won't make nukes, and then we won't have a contest about who's going to nuke who and how quickly one could out-nuke the other. Let's just not even do that. You guys already have the advantage. But let's not have a problem, and then we won't have a problem. Right. That's essentially the same attitude that the Iranians have. I could make a nuke. Don't put me in the position where I feel like I have to. And then the American thing is, we promised Israel that we threaten you. You better not make a nuke. And then they go, okay, just don't bomb me, and I won't. And then we go, you better not. And they go, okay. So in other words, we got this standoff where actually we're already in agreement. So this is why I say I think an agreement should be easy. That's why I say I'm bullish on the thing, is because the Ayatollah doesn't want to fight. After all, if he does break out and start to make a nuke, we're going to goddamn bomb him, right? Really bad. And then he'll make a nuke anyway after we bomb the crap out of him, and maybe even with nukes to get at his deeper facilities. And so he doesn't want that. So this is why it was easy for Obama to have a deal. They were already in the Non-Proliferation Treaty. They already had a safeguards agreement with the IAEA. They were already not making nuclear weapons. They're a threshold state, and that's it. So you're right. The obvious thing is to figure out a way to rename the Obama deal the Trump deal, rearrange some paragraphs, and make it, get the Iranians to agree to a few more sunset provisions, to lift those, and make some of their agreements permanent, and then get back into it. And after all, this is the thing about Trump. When Trump, or not the thing about him, but the thing about what he did when he tore up the Obama deal in 2018, he didn't really tear it up. He just withdrew America from it, right? Like the Paris climate thing is still a thing. It's just we weren't part of it anymore.
So
Did he get us out of that? But anyway, but the point being that they're still in the agreement with all the rest of the UN Security Council. It's still an active treaty, considered by all of them. And so even the parts where the Iranians aren't abiding by the restrictions in it, that's actually allowed in the deal. That if America breaks the deal, then they can stop abiding by some of the restrictions in it without actually breaking the deal and leaving the deal itself, which is where we are right now. So it's kind of awkward for Trump to figure out how to get us back in there when he said it was the worst deal that anyone ever signed and blah, 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 blah. But it's the deal that we already have and that already accomplishes everything that he wants, which is guaranteeing the civilian nature of their program.
Is Iran currently a year away, or what is the actual breakout period?
Well, so this is interesting. So the way that they categorize a breakout period is how long would it take them to enrich enough uranium to weapons grade to make a single atom bomb out of it. But they don't include the amount of time that it would take to have the metallurgists form it into the right shape and have the bomb makers fit it into a delivery vehicle and this and that and whatever. All of that adds time. So they say that under the deal, it was, and see, part of the deal was they can enrich uranium, but everything that they do, they have to ship out of the country to France, and then the French turn it into fuel rods and then ship it back. And that was the compromise, that you can keep enriching uranium, but you can't have a stockpile of it. And that way to reduce, or that way to lengthen the amount of time that it would take for them to make a bomb if they decided to make one. Is that clear? So now they have a much bigger stockpile of highly enriched uranium, not weapons grade, but 60%, which could very easily be enriched weapons grade. They've only done so they can negotiate it away.
What was that? Sorry, dude. Hang on one second. I'll just unmute you. What was that? Sorry, brother.
No, I was just actually double checking that you muted me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, cool. No, absolutely, man. I just want to play a little bit more because he just gets into a couple other things, and then I'll pause it and get your thoughts on it all, okay? Mm-hmm. Cool.
Way, though. So it's okay. It's not that they're making weapons grade shit, though.
So in your summation, essentially, they want to have the risk of that they could break out so that if someone attacked them, they're within a period that they could have the nuke and a nuclear deterrent.
Well, and so one more thing about that is, so when we talk about enriched uranium to weapons grade, then what we're really talking about them making, or the potential of them making, is what would be the Hiroshima bomb, which is a simple gun-type nuke, which is a giant thing. And what it essentially is it's a shotgun inside that shoots a gigantic, slug, basically, of highly enriched uranium into a target of highly enriched uranium. And that's what creates the critical mass and the fission reaction there. So the problem with that is that they don't have heavy bombers. They have no ability to deliver that thing except on the back of a flatbed truck or something, right? So if you want to miniaturize a nuclear bomb, then that's like what you have with the Nagasaki bomb, which itself was not that small, but I'm just saying the process there was an implosion system with a plutonium pit. So this is how virtually everyone, including the United States and our arsenal, and I believe all the other arsenals in the world, where they have missiles tipped with nuclear bombs in missile-sized delivery vehicles and warheads. These are plutonium implosion bombs that you're able to what they call miniaturize to stick onto the tip of a missile. You can't do that with uranium. Or you can, potentially you could, but it'd be much more difficult and mostly unheard of to do so. But here's the thing, is they don't have any plutonium. And the thing is, the way that you get plutonium for nuclear weapons is you burn uranium in your nuclear reactor, and then you have plutonium waste, but the waste comes out all polluted with other isotopes. You can't use it for weapons unless you have a whole other facility to reprocess that plutonium, to purify it, to make nuclear weapons fuel out of it. Well, they don't have a facility like that at all. And their process for once their reactors full of enough plutonium waste under the deal, the Russians come and get it and take all the plutonium waste out. And so they do not have a plutonium route to the bomb at all. And their uranium route to the bomb is a route to a gigantic bomb that they can't really do anything with other than test one in the desert and say, don't mess with me. You know, they could maybe drive one to Baghdad, but how are they going to get it across the Jordan River? You know what I mean?
So
They're
you're
not.
saying
I'll unmute myself. I'll leave it there. I'll unmute you. I'll leave it there, man. So I find all that to be quite fascinating. And just like forget, or not forget, but like the fascinating part for me is more just like how bullshit the Israeli argument is for the necessity, their belief that we need to bomb Iran and bomb all their nuclear facilities because, God damn it, if we don't do that, then they could have a nuclear weapon in a very short amount of time and blow up all of North America. And sort of what Scott's argument there is that, like, even if they could make a nuke with uranium, they would have no way of delivering it. It would be like, yeah, like if you, in order to cause the destruction that the Israelis are claiming that they could cause, like that, it's not possible. They don't have B-1 bombers. They don't have like these, you know, massive. They don't have like a massive air force and stuff like that. So they don't really have any way of like dropping this thing. And even if they could make one that could cause that big of an impact, the thing would have to be so damn big that like it's impossible. And the only way to do sort of the modern hydrogen bomb thermonuclear tipped, Tomahawk cruise missile style bomb is they need this plutonium thing, and the Russians come and take it, and they just don't have that capability of processing it and doing that. So I find all that super interesting. Love to get your thoughts on it, man, on either the Israeli propaganda arguments or just the technological side of things. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know how helpful I am going to be, brother, for this conversation, but I think I can ask some questions of you. I mean,
Sure.
my general thought is not very constructive, and that's just that I think that it's just all theater. Like, do they have nuclear weapons? How much? How long is it going to take? It's like the same old conversation for decades. So it's like, I kind of, if I'm being very honest with you, I just kind of get like eyes glazed, where it's like, it's almost like, this is like the forced conversation as to like, this is what you talk about. It's all about the deal. It's all about nuclear. It's all about this or that and blah, blah, blah. It's like same with every different country, same like throughout the decades. And it's kind of like, are we still talking about this? Doesn't mean it's not real or whatever, or, a concern. And I'm not trying to, diminish it, I guess, in any way. But my read on it, and it doesn't mean that I'm right, is that I just feel like it's political theater, like as a distraction or a talking point, and it's not really like the main thing that's actually happening. And I don't have to be right about that. But I guess my questions are around the Israel part of that again. And it's like, you know, there's obviously like an intent to, and with the US or the Five Eyes or the West in general, but there's obviously an intent to start some shit there. So, yeah, I mean, I'll kind of don't know what my question is, but I just want to kind of press you for some deeper commentary, I guess, because this has been on the cards for a long time, and there's a list of countries that they wanted to start wars with, and Iran's the one left on that you can reference as well. But yeah, I mean, I know it's kind of that's just kind of, I know, not particularly helpful, but that's some thoughts from me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, man. Oh, hang on, sweetie, no, I got my cat here, and she wants to run across my computer, and if you are to do so, you may prematurely end this recording, Tilly. So I'm going to pick you up, darling. Say hello to the world. Say hello to brother Nick. She's a beautiful little girl, but you have to go now. Thanks, sweetie.
Hey, Tilly. Darling.
She's adorable, dude. I've been letting them out. Like normally, I'll take my cats out on leads and harnesses because I just, two reasons. I worry about their well-being, but also I just don't want them to go fucking running off and just getting up to mischief and slaughtering birds and whatever else. But anyway, I have been breaking that rule lately and just letting them out because they've been pretty good. I sort of have realized that they're pretty territorial and they don't seem to want to go too far. They usually, if I just let them out without a lead, they'll just go under the house and sort of fuck around and roll around in the dirt. But anyway, that's a different topic. But yeah, so yeah. I think you're right that it's like a lot of this is theatre. I think that and in terms of just like the topical aspect and the sort of the narrative that it's driving everyone to and the conversations that are being had are largely like, I think you're largely right that it's kind of a distraction from some of the bigger picture stuff that's going on. But I do appreciate Scott and Whitney Webb as well, because she's very good with debunking the Israeli propaganda and the intelligence community's propaganda. But I repeat myself, is like I appreciate them because there's a narrative out there that is being sold and that they want everyone to talk about, like you know, Iran's the biggest threat to Western civilization, and they, you know, if they had their way, they'd be instituting Sharia law and stuff like that. Even though like America's and the West is like allied with a lot of Muslim countries that do actually implement Sharia law in their own countries, you know, Saudi Arabia being one of them, and we don't seem to have a problem with that. But yeah, like just specifically with Iran, and so like Israel, and by extension, like the Americans, they are constantly, and like you see this on Twitter, you know, you see this from like big, you know, right-wing conservative accounts like Ben Shapiro and Michael Knowles and Glenn Beck and people like that, where they're like, you know, they're just going on about how like Iran is tyrannical and they are, Tilly, sweetie, please, come on. You can't run across my computer. Yeah, they're really like trying to sell us all that like that this, even though it's ugly and it's not, we don't want to have to do this, but by golly, we are forced to do this and we have to go bomb Iran because if we don't, they're going to kill us all. And I just do appreciate Whitney Webb and Scott when they just actually pick the eyes out of those narratives and show you with really good evidence and quite conclusively that like just how bullshit that is. And again, like just to reference Trita Parsi's book, Treacherous Alliance, like he really goes through chapter and verse and with a lot of footnotes and source material about how Israel does have a quite a long history of getting along with Iran, you know, prior to the 1990s, and then they ended up changing their tune when they thought that their aid from the US might be in jeopardy. So yeah, like, yeah, I don't know what else to say, man, other than that, even though like there's these narratives are kind of like we're forced to talk about them, and that may in and of itself kind of be a bit of a limited hangout. I think that it's good that there are people who, okay, if we're going to be forced to talk about it, let's expose how she goes. Did the stream stop? No, we're good. We're good. Yes. Let's expose how bullshit this narrative actually is. Like, we're going to have to talk about this. Let's have a conversation about all the lies that are baked in the cake.
So, I mean, I guess I've got the same question, and I just maybe want to ask it again. Like, I'd thought that kind of the game was up because everyone, like including Tulsi Gabbard and all of those people and whoever the defense people were like, no, we're not going to get involved in a war in the Middle East. We don't want to go to a war with Iran, and we're not going to fight a war over there based on Israel wants. So clearly Israel's gone ahead, and what have they struck?
Yes,
Iran? Is
yes.
that what
I'll see if I can keep talking, and I'll see if I can find the videos. But yeah, they've been bombing from what's being reported. They're bombing their nuclear facilities.
Right. So, but does that mean that America's going to war with Iran because Iran hasn't done anything? It's Israel.
Not yet. No, this is a preemptive. These are preemptive strikes from Israel. But the fear is that that Israel's going to drag America into this because there's no way. Like, well, I mean, Israel has nuclear weapons as well. That's a whole nother thing. But it would be a very tall task for Israel to just outright defeat the Ayatollah and the Iranian regime.
Right. I was also under the impression that Iran had quite advanced weaponry and had already proven that they could beat the defense systems of Israel. Is that true?
Yeah, well, yes, there is some truth to that. I mean, like the Iron Dome, Israel's Iron Dome, and some of their other defensive systems to shoot down missiles has been proven to have chinks in the armor. I think it was last year when the Iranians unloaded a bunch of missiles, and although probably a good majority of them were taken out, and Israel's defensive systems worked quite well, some still got through. But there was a lot of secrecy around that. Like there was video evidence of them getting through and hitting some targets, and particularly military targets. That was sort of the interesting thing with like Iran's attacks, retaliatory attacks against Israel, because you've got to remember the context is like Israel had like assassinated a bunch of Iranian officials and nuclear scientists and things like that, and then assassinated a Hamas leader on Iranian territory, and also bombed the Iranian consulate building in Syria. So it was in retaliation to those things that then they launched these massive missile strikes. But so Israel's like, let's just say not necessarily always targeting military assets, but Iran's response was that they weren't just like blowing up a bunch of fucking apartment buildings. They were actually trying to
Well, they've got
hit.
to be very careful about it.
Yeah,
Because of escalations and that.
exactly. So to answer your question, they did slip through, and also from Colonel Douglas McGregor's reporting. He was saying that the things that Iran unloaded on Israel during that period were like a bunch of like their old junky like stuff that they just like had a shitload of, and they weren't their most sophisticated weapons, put it that way. So we don't really know what their more sophisticated missiles could do, because I don't think they've actually really like displayed that and launched them in that way.
So, I mean, and you don't have to have the answer to this, but I guess the question is, if they've already proven that they can strike Israel, why would Israel strike knowing that they can be hurt and targeted? Because, I mean, obviously they want to provoke and start something and involve the US or do different things. But if it's possible that Iran just goes like through and just annihilates them, I mean, maybe they're confident that won't happen. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's my question is because if they already have proven that they can do it, I mean, it's a pretty big risk.
I agree. I absolutely agree, man. And I think that if you were to, like, I don't know for sure, but just from what I get, like the vibe I get from online and different accounts, like people like Israelis and particularly like sort of left, liberal Israeli people, they don't want this. They don't want, they might not like Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas, but they don't want to be going to war with them. They don't want to have to be conscripted to fight them either. And so this is decisions that are made by, the elite in Israel, the Likud party, Benjamin Netanyahu, Smotrich, and like all these guys that like they're the ones who are like really provoking this and taking these actions. But I don't know that it's I don't think that that's reflected by the people of Israel. I don't think that they're necessarily that on board with all this stuff, but they're also almost like innocent victims in all this and getting dragged along, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it could also be to distract the narrative away from what's going on in Gaza as well.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Yep. That's a fair point. Yeah, so
Because I mean, sentiment has, shifted quite a lot. So if you can move goalposts, or you can create, you know, yeah. I mean, this is not something that I have a lot of knowledge on. I'll just like state that clearly. You're the guy that knows this stuff, like, um, pretty well. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's obvious that sentiment has largely shifted against Israel, and people are speaking out against it, them now. So then, if they're starting something with Iran, I don't necessarily see how that, you know, um, gives them favorable sentiment, unless there's something that can come of it, either through a distraction, or inflaming things, or shifting things, or having someone strike you and then they're the victim. But yeah, I don't see what the strategy would be.
it just seems so psychotic, and I'm baffled just as much as you are, and there's a lot of question marks, man. So yeah, like, yeah, I don't know what else to say, but I totally agree with you. Like, I have all these same questions. I don't understand the stratagem, other than to say that they just want to drag America in to fight this war for them. But then, that opens up a whole nother set of questions of like, well then, like, what's the goal? What's the ultimate outcome? To just like topple the regime in Iran and hope that they can install someone who's more pliable and more friendly with Israel or America? Like, I just don't really get it. I feel like there's going to be that the blowback from that, and it's not necessarily going to be the outcome that they desire, and they're probably just going to create a whole nother set of issues that then they're going to have to try and deal with that as well. And that's the other thing too. I'll just say as well that like, America really is vulnerable if they were to really go to war with Iran, because they've got so many military bases all throughout the Middle East. In like, Iran could hit many of these different, and then you're talking like hundreds of thousands of American personnel spread out, in Jordan, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, in Iraq, in all these places that are just like neighboring Iran. Like, it for Iran to hurt America, they don't have to shoot missiles, thousands of miles away to hit the homeland, the literal United States. They could just hit, these targets that are like just not too far away from them at all, these different military bases.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's also the part where it's maybe not just Israel, it's the wider military industrial complex and these transnational interests, which have been, wanting, you know, this continual Middle Eastern conflict for a number of reasons.
Totally, man. I've just got this is just one sort of clip, but this is apparently what's happening right now, man. Pretty fucking scary, dude. Yeah, pretty dark. Don't like looking at shit like that, but
So how do
yeah,
you feel about the morality of it, Harry?
not good, brother. Not good. Definitely not in line with natural law or objective morality in the slightest. I would argue it's the antithesis.
Self-defense.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Israel has a right to defend itself. Do not forget that, even when it's a preemptive strike. It's all self-defense.
Yeah, speaking of which, you've also got Carbine 911 and Peter Thiel, and they link with Palantir and this kind of predictive policing AI system, and obviously AI Palantir's been all through the news. Um, but yeah, as Gaza as a method, as Catherine Fitz would say, testing these different kind of AI weaponry systems as a way to delegate the responsibility of war and the morality of it. So you can say that AI did it and not a human. But then you've got, this is not directly what we're talking about here, but just with pre-crime, as you mentioned, that emptive strike, that's something that's come up a little bit in my field is the pre-crime stuff, and the scouring of social media posts and all of that kind of stuff. So that is not science fiction. Like that's a real company and real technology that's being developed and implemented. Like carbon, um, is like, don't quote me on this because I read it from Whitney Webb. But they maybe have got connection to the 911 emergency system in the US. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
all
in her
those
book. That's in her
technical
book.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, dude. Speaking of teal, I can check this out. I thought this was pretty funny. Let me just play this.
Mr. Teal, do you have any comments about Palantir's surveillance of the American people, sir? Or any of your connections to Jeffrey Epstein? I think people are rather concerned about that last particular one. You're setting up a big brother surveillance system, and people know it, sir. You think the American people want this surveillance tech being used against them? Any comments at all on the Epstein connections? You were meeting with them. People are waking up to what you're doing there, sir. That's why we're here covering this.
Just crickets. He didn't want to say nothing. Nothing about nothing.
Yeah, that's a great video. And he's also got like one of those like blood transfusion companies, and some people say like parts of it is like a bit of fake news, but there's that kind of young blood transfusion for longevity stuff that he's into. And then with Epstein, and I'm not sure how linked Teal is, but they're all through this, is actually human cloning. And so one of the things that I was watching recently is that even Bill Clinton in '97 had to um, specifically say, like, put an end to human cloning. Um, so yeah, there's kind of some pretty dark rabbit holes to do with, because we both know that Epstein was connected to like transhumanism and connecting, like, the kind of breeding stuff and doing manipulation with genes and all of that kind of thing. And it seems as though, yeah, there's yeah, I think there's a lot more to uncover there. I don't have a further point, but that's an area of research I've got at the moment. And yeah, um, people now are waking up to Peter Thiel and his influence. And I mean, the Independent Media Alliance and Whitney Webb and all of these people, and Derek Bros have all been saying that since Trump got in, and how he funded Vance for like about $1.5 million or something like that. And all these people that are around the UFO file, even to do with this exotic technology, Jesse Michaels and even Eric Weinstein. And they could argue that they're free to say and do what they want, but just so many things keep going through Peter Thiel, and he's not like the big bad guy or whatever. He could just be like the guy that puts it together. But we know that Palantir came from In-Q-Tel, and it's just like that typical public-private arrangement, so that they can bring through like the complete dystopian technology surveillance grid. And I know everyone's talking about it now, but it's like, I guess it's almost like there's these certain topics which like you're allowed to talk about, and so like yes, it's great that it's all out there, and yes, it's seemingly people speaking about it is having an impact, and at the same time, it makes me wonder like why we're allowed to why we're allowed to talk about certain things at certain times. You know, it's like before you weren't allowed to talk about Israel and Nazis, and now you are, and before you weren't allowed like you could talk about all of the things that Peter Thiel and Palantir is up to, and no one would want to hear it. And now all of a sudden, everyone's like fine to talk about it. So, I mean, not to be too conspiratorial, but it just makes me wonder about like why, you know, like yeah, I guess there's some natural, and then I wonder how much of it's like synthetic and people allowing certain conversations to happen.
Yeah, no, I hear you, dude. The thing that's like a real shame about that, about like what you're saying, like everyone now finally cottoning on to Palantir, Peter Thiel, and the privatization of this, surveillance state and all that is like when Whitney Webb was like pounding the desk and demanding, like, well, not demanding, but just saying like, hey guys, there's this whole fucked up thing going on and it's going to be ushered in through Trump and you might want to reconsider throwing your support behind Trump, like before he got into power, probably when it would have been most crucial, like might have had the most impact if like more people got on board with what she was saying then. Like you're saying, like no one wanted to hear it. People just like shut the fuck up, and just get behind Trump and whatever. And then it's like now once Trump's in power and it's like it's too late. It's like it's all the wheels are in motion now. People are now waking up to it, and it's just like, fuck, dude. Where were you guys like 6 months ago? Where were you guys when maybe we might have like, well, not we, but the American people might have had more of a fighting chance of preventing Peter Thiel, getting into power. Yeah, it's interesting.
You mean before Palantir made a partnership with Elon Musk and XAI, and they got access to all of the data through Doge, and were able to put it into all of their systems? You mean you mean before that happened?
Yeah,
But Elon Musk's here to save you guys. Don't worry about it.
yeah.
He's one of the good guys. Now he's pushing back against Trump. Now that he's got all the data and raised money for his companies at that time, just not scripted at all, guys. He just, he's one of the good guys. He just found out the bad stuff. Trump's connected with Epstein.
Yeah. How, wasn't that interesting, man? Like last week or whenever it was when all that was blowing up. I didn't know what to think.
Brother was, is dating Jeffrey Epstein's, or was dating Jeffrey Epstein's ex, and there's all those connections too there. But yeah, don't worry about that one.
Super frustrating, super sad more than anything. It's a shame, and I heard Dave, a long-time listener. I financially subscribe to Dave's Part of the Problem podcast, Dave Smith. I love it. I really love what he does. But I remember he like wasn't, and he even admitted this just recently that he's like, fuck, this is going to be, he's like, my next rabbit hole, my next like deep dive is going to have to be into Palantir. And it's just,
yeah. I mean, how does he not know it because of WikiLeaks though? Like, this is the frustrating part. I know it's like you can say that about anyone on any topic, but he's all about the war stuff, and one of the main people in that is WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, and Palantir targeted him. That information's out there, and Dave Smith has been going on about how Glenn Greenwald's, the greatest journalist in the 21st century, and they also had a profile on Glenn Greenwald targeting him. So yeah, I mean, maybe he just didn't know, but yeah, I mean, it's frustrating.
It is frustrating, man. Like I wish, like sometimes I just wish that Dave and Whitney Webb would get together and do something, and Scott Horton, like, and just like
Catherine Fitz.
Yeah, like there's because that's it, man. It's like I don't like begrudge Dave for being ignorant of this stuff, because I understand that like there's only like so many things you can focus on, and so that's why it's so good to have different people working on different things. But then you kind of like, but then it's like, but then I want them to all like get together. Like I don't know if Robbie the Fire, so Dave's co-host, has mentioned Whitney Webb a couple of times to Dave, but it didn't seem like Dave was like jumping at like, oh, who is this lady? And maybe we should get her on. And yeah, so hopefully in the near future or something like that would happen. Or even just like Joe Rogan getting Whitney Webb on and blasting her out to his, tens of millions of people that listen to him. Something like that. But because I firmly believe that she's the single person who's done the best research on all this stuff, on specifically, like Jeffrey Epstein, but then like his ties to all those different ventures you were talking about, the bio shit and the surveillance shit and the
Also Atlantean technology and the cloning and all of that kind of stuff, like the taking people offshore of Cuba in underground like two-man subs to look at ancient sites. There is again another kind of subject, but it is possible that these people are aware of ancient technology and that we're rediscovering it. And if that is, part of what some people say about Atlantis is that they were highly advanced technologically, but didn't have the wisdom or the spiritual integration, and so they basically had weaponry that could destroy things at scale. And that may have caused cataclysms or been a part of the demise and that kind of thing. So that's neither here nor there. You don't have to agree with that part, but definitely they believe it,
yeah.
and they're really deep in it, especially in that Bahamas kind of Cuba area as well. And then even the Nazis as well. One of their main things was beyond just the occult was going and looking at ancient sites as well. So yeah, the and yeah, I mean, and Catherine Fitz has said this on some interviews recently as well, is that these people think that um, there's going to be this is like the last generation that is going to die and may even live. And even if you don't think that it's like immortality, they are using the number 145 years as well. And then when you're starting to get into the dark occult as well. One of the things that's come up in my field recently is sigil magic. um, and I don't have a great lot to say on it other than that there does seem to be dark occultists that are, you know, creating an outcome where um, maybe not them physically are immortal, but something that they create is. And as you're aware, it's like these people talking about uploading your consciousness, and these technocrats like Ray Kurzweil, and these people that have talked about this for a while, and even Elon Musk, this kind of brain machine interface, and being able to yeah, interact. Um, you know, more and more, man. The more advanced the technology gets, the more we can't ignore the occult. They go hand in hand. And the reason why, we have that clip of Mark Passio at the beginning talking about these spiritual principles, um, is because, um, the answer is spiritual. And so I don't want to kind of get on my soapbox with the same thing again, but um, it's not going to be about like figuring out one particular conspiracy. It's not going to be about figuring out, okay, like I have more knowledge on one particular subject or particular technology, or finding out more about the elite or whatever. It is about these spiritual principles, these seven hermetic principles, and the principle of care that encapsulates them in natural law. But I need to figure out a power solution, brother. So if you just want to talk for a bit.
Yeah, too easy, bro. Yep, no problem at all. And I think when you get back, when Cosmic Surfer returns, we'll switch gears a little bit because we did want to just have a bit of a general conversation on just like life and sort of what's been going on personally in both Cosmic Surfer's life and my life, and maybe just some ideas around like dealing with different things and just throwing some stuff around. Maybe we can help each other. Maybe we can offer each other some advice and some tidbits to assist us with some things that we're going through, and that I'm sure many other people are going through as well during these sort of tumultuous, chaotic times. At the moment, it looks like Cosmic Surfer's camera's just fallen down there a little bit, but that's okay. Here we go. He's back there with that big, beautiful mug.
Those guys.
Hey, you're good there. What's the power situation, brother? Do you have to go flick a switch or?
Yeah. So don't go.
Back on the mountain, dude. So I was just saying, I don't know if you overheard that, but I was just saying maybe it's a good time to switch gears a little bit, and we can talk about some life things as we sort of discussed at the start, and yeah, just sort of see what's been going on, personally, and maybe we can, just whatever, just have a bit of a chat and just keep it a bit more casual, brother. I don't have to sit here trying to pretend to be an expert.
I kind of want to find a way to talk about real stuff, without just airing, like without it being a therapy session or anything like that. But, one of the subjects that came that I just listened to a podcast in the sauna with Will Keller and Chris Jansen about the Renaissance man, which is, I believe from either the 1400s or 1600s or something like that. It's basically having like my very limited understanding on it is that it's a term for being someone who studies a very wide range of subjects, and you're not necessarily an expert in every single one, but it's like you have a lot of different interests and you have a lot of different skills and you're constantly learning, and and so that's something that is of interest to me, because I do study a lot of different things. I'm definitely not claiming that I'm a Renaissance man yet, but it is something that I would like to strive towards. And then also like, some stuff around masculinity's come up. You know, um, I'm doing a rose dieta, which is, more to do with the feminine. I'll talk about that in a second. But there has, with the vision quest that I've done, and the rites of passage, it's something that's important to me, like this kind of coming of age and, becoming a man and all of these kind of things. And I guess part of that is, the skills that we have in our everyday life. And you're someone that feels like pretty good with that because you have a real go. Um, and it's also just reflecting on it a little bit in my own life is that, in my situation, my parents got divorced when I was in primary school. I lived with my mother, and then my father died when I was 25. And so, and then also just with stuff I won't go into, but just with like life in general, the learning of like skills to do with, your hands, and kind of like whether it's simple things like tying knots or working like just, around the house tasks. And, I live in a large property, and so there's a lot to do, right? And so I've really been confronted with like the challenge of addressing things head on, and also having to take the time to kind of learn new skills, and um like about like overwhelm and about stress and anxiety, and kind of learning to train myself to think differently, and to kind of work through that. And I'll say that, just being very honest with you, I'm like, I don't really feel like I've done very well. and at the same time I am starting to have a go. And so I just wanted to share something a bit more personal like that. And, we can get into more of it, but we can kind of start a little bit there. And maybe, maybe the roses, even though it is to do with, the feminine and healing the divine feminine in us, because we all have a masculine and feminine aspect, as to the law of polarity. Um, but it is kind of a little bit like to do with, society in general, how we don't have those hands-on skills. And on some level, it is a little emasculating, if I'm being honest, to not really know how to do so many things. And at the same time, I acknowledge that I throw myself in the deep end. So it's not like I just live in a residential thing and, you know, it's about, things are at a large scale with the things that I do, obviously,
Absolutely, it is.
you know. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there, just as to kind of touch on like the great work and part of what I'm tapping into a little bit about what it means, like around, there's a few different subjects like the shadow work, the humility, the ego, um, the facing things for how they are. There's like the reaction of maybe you want to fight or push back or argue, like even the even though like you're triggered and you're like feeling that stress and anxiety, like all the things that I have to do. And I know this is kind of like personal, but I feel like it's pretty like generic as well, right? Because we all have these tasks that we have to get to. We all have these things to work through. We all can learn new skills, especially when it comes to like being a true media. You have to learn the technical skills, and we have to learn to share our voice. But it's also about like not just talking about principles and actually applying them. Like we can sit here and talk to our faces of the blue about just being more objectively moral, and then we're going out and stealing and being a dickhead and treating people poorly and those kind of things. So, and I also just wanted to relate it to the plant medicine journey that I've been on as well. It's like one of the phrases that's always stuck with me is that it gives you what you need, not what you want or not what you think that you want. And one of those themes around surrender, and I just is like a buzzword, but I was like, oh yeah, just surrender, bro. And I didn't actually know what that was. And so I was one of those people that went down kicking and screaming, like in an egoic way in a sense, but not even really knowing or having a good grasp on what the ego was at that time. Um, like fighting things or like not getting into the flow and dropping into it and like holding on. And it is like a lot to like process and to let go of, but also to be faced with things very directly. And it's not easy and it's very messy. And I just kind of wanted to share that message to, you know, for people that are maybe having a hard time out there, or realizing that maybe you do have a lot of shit, or maybe that you're, maybe you're not as disciplined, or maybe you do feel like you've got a lot of work to get to where you need to be. Just want to like let people know that you're not alone on that, and there are like you could be like it is a lot to confront, and it's also keep using the word messy because I've been in ceremonies where you're puking and shitting and you've got snot coming out your face and you're just like a huge mess. But and it's like people want to come out of those experiences and be like, bro, I just talking with the aliens and I just got the downloads from the galactic universe, and oh, I'm so spiritual now. But the reality of it the 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 reality of it is that it is really hard work, and then also you have to go away from that and apply it to your life. And so again, we can sit here and say, oh, we're living natural law and we know the principles and it's all about objective morality, we've got the answers. But then there's and then the great work about sharing that message, and then oh yeah, do shadow work. But what does shadow work actually mean, and like how are you applying it into your life? And so I wanted to bring that out because we've both got properties, and it kind of comes to these core foundations and kind of working with those foundations. And yeah, I mean, I kind of, yeah, got a lot there, and I just wanted to present that to you and the audience. What do you have to say about that, my brother?
That's beautiful, man. Yeah, no, I struggle with similar things, and I think sort of like what I'm going through is probably like a fraction of from what I understand, like what you're going through, and the stress that comes with all that. You know, like just for example, like my plot of land is 640 square meters. Your one of your plots of land is like 100 hectares or something like that on the side of
No,
a safe.
same stuff though.
But no, but I hear you.
There is
But
there is
still,
scale, but like
yeah.
you're definitely doing like far more anyway. So don't diminish it.
Oh,
Sure.
thank you, man. No, I appreciate that. But also like I loved what you said there about like just sort of touching on the masculine and the feminine and how emasculating like just like modern or the modern whatever, just for a lack of a better term, like modern life is like the life in 2025 where most things we just like pay other people to do. Like for example, like and then sorry, just back up. I'll give the example in 1 second. But you know, like just how little we actually do like grunt work and elbow grease and actually use your hands and swing a hammer and stuff like that. And then so for example, so as you know, I'm building a house and just watching that process happen, and I've learnt a lot, and I now like know exactly what goes into building a house, which I had no idea prior to this experience. But just watching like my carpenter do his thing, you know, my plasterers currently, like they're just putting up gyprock now and doing stuff like that. And just realizing like, holy fuck, dude, I have no idea how to do any of this shit. Like I'd have like a real rudimentary understanding of like if I was like thrown into a desperate situation, like into the wilderness, and I had to like build some sort of a shelter. Like I think I'm pretty confident I could whip something up, but you know, it would just be shoddy and shit and fall apart quite quickly. But yeah, just like and then just not having the experience. Like it's like I've got an idea in my head of what would need to be done, but then actually watching people who have 10, 20, you know, 10, 15, 20 years of experience of doing this stuff, and like how good they are at it. It's yeah, just like it just makes me think like, fuck man, like that's really impressive. I see that as like a real masculine trait to have these skills, and it makes me feel quite emasculine realizing that I have none of those skills, and I probably should have some humility and then also have some discipline and interest and want to acquire at least some of those skills, even just like a fraction of like what they can do. But yeah, so just all that like is like super interesting, you know. Like for example as well, like another example is like what I do for work is I sit where I'm sitting right now. This is my home office. I make phone calls and I send emails and I put deals together, and I sell these products. And then once I sell them, then I go deliver them. But like, I don't do anything in the way of like producing any of these products. You know, like, yeah. So yeah, like I don't know, like I don't really, the only times I've ever like actually used my hands for work or at all, whatever, doesn't even have to be like for earning money, but just is like when I had I had a concreting job when I was 18 or 19 years old. And that's about it really. Like other than that, it's just been like kind of office jobs, sales jobs. So yeah, like then just like seeing, you know, guys like building my house, I'm just going, fuck man, like that's impressive, you know. And that's like, yeah, just like, I don't know, just like in like a raw sense, it's just like a very like fucking impressive, honorable, like manly thing, you know. And I just take my hats off and I just go like, fuck, I want to learn to do some of that shit, you know. if for nothing else, and not even for like just to make money. It's just like just to know that I can do it, and just to feel like it's almost like I feel like it's empowering. You know, it would be.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you, brother. Excuse me. Confirmation, but and I guess part of you mentioned the word empowering, and I guess part of that is, you know, you can do it if people want to do it. And I've been hanging out with a friend, and she's very much one of those people that sees it. I can do that. I can fix that. Likes to do it. Goes and looks at YouTube and just and figures it out. And it doesn't matter about roles like masculine, feminine, or man or woman or anything like that. But that is something that I can or have been like, at least it's a spark of inspiration there. If I'm being honest, there's also part of me that's like, when that is happening, I'm also like, man, I don't really give a fuck. Like, there is that part of me, but that's not like how I don't really feel like that's like how I really feel. I feel like that's more of um like lethargy, or stagnant energy, or kind of yeah, I don't know how to kind of like I feel like when we're living in a harmonious environment, or we're kind of really tapped into kind of you know I don't really know where I'm going with that, but I guess I guess I'm just kind of recognizing that part in myself that can be like, oh, I'll do it later. I can't be bothered right now, or health issues, or there's a story that we've told ourselves, like that story that I said, oh, well, my father moved away when I was younger, and so therefore I never really like. There's also like those kind of narratives. So it's about having the thought, and there's that inspiration, and then when you think differently, you can create a different outcome. So then you're not the victim, and you're not sitting there like as like a traumatized child going, but I don't know how to do it, and I'm just a weak man. And it's like, well, that's not, you're not a weak man. Like, you can be empowered. You can create these small wins for yourself to give you the self-confidence, so then you feel better about yourself, and then you're not in self-loathing, and then you can create a better outcome. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah, like yeah, I don't know, man. Like I feel like too, like I agree that there are all these things, even if like I really believe that everyone has child trauma, even people who might not realize it. I don't think there's really anyone who's been raised in like a quote unquote like perfect household with like perfect parents. There's always, parents are human beings as well, and human beings have flaws. And so my just like base assumption is that, there's going to be things that like your parents didn't do, not just you or me specifically, but just like anyone, just that your parents, like, parents could always be better and could have done things differently, and therefore like there's going to be something that's going to have some sort of like lasting effect on everybody, like as children, and like the goal is always to like minimize that. Like, you want to do what's best for your children, but sometimes as well, man, like like just to speak about my parents, like my parents split up when I was quite young, and then that's how I ended up here in northern New South Wales. My mum, when she left my dad, she brought us all back up here because this is like where she grew up. But yeah, like I don't know, like I don't know that the right thing for my parents to do was, I don't know if it was correct that they were that they should have stayed together. Like, it's nice. It's probably ideal that your parents don't split up, but I just knowing my dad and knowing my mum, it's like when I look at those guys, I just think like, how the fuck were you two ever together? Like it makes no sense, you know. So I don't know that would have been the right thing to do, you know. Like, but anyway, regardless, you know, that had a big effect on me, like not having my dad around, and my mum used to do petty things like not let us call him or not let him get in contact with us, and you know, there's just stuff like that like you know, that affected me, and I think that's like a form of trauma that like I think I've done reasonably well with like dealing with it and like talking about it, and I talked to my dad about it, and I talked to my mum about it, but they're both very stubborn people. So they're like, my dad's like reluctant to ever admit his faults, and my mum's also reluctant to ever admit her faults. But I can kind of take like his arguments and take her arguments, even like if I ask about like a specific issue, like something that I remember going down, and I'm like, oh, what's your thoughts on how that went down, Dad? And what's your thoughts on how that went down, Mum? And then I know that there's bullshit, you know, there's like bullshit lies or obfuscations in both their stories, but then I kind of like go, okay, what do I think was like the most likely, you know, sort of the way it would have went down, given, you know, both their arguments and how opposing their views are, like what really sort of happened, and then I just sort of have to, you know, figure that out myself. But yeah, like, yeah, so yeah, I don't really know where I was going with that, but just to say that, like, I think like no matter who you are, like you're probably harboring some sort of trauma, and then as an adult, as like a mature human being, it's the only thing is kind of like, well, how do you best deal with that? And for me, like I've just tried to just understand that, like, yeah, like my parents aren't perfect. Like they both made stupid decisions and fucked up in many different ways. But you know, like, yeah, I don't want to like they didn't do anything to me for me to like hate them for it. So it's just kind of like, you know, just I don't know, just recognizing that, like, at the end of the day, they do love me, even though they did things that kind of like whatever, like makes you sort of think like, why the fuck would you do that? But you know, I just know deep in my heart that it's like, no, I know they love me, I love them, and I don't know, like it's just kind of like it is what it is, and yeah, and also like you said about like the victim thing as well, like I don't want to fall in the trap of being like, woe me and whatever. And I just sort of also try to put things in perspective that, like, I know that there's people out there that would have it way worse off than me, you know, and their upbringings,
Of course,
you know. So I
of
don't know.
course. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I hear you on those things, and at the same time, you know, I didn't necessarily want to have a conversation about trauma, but now that we're there, I did mention it. You know, there are, and you know, it's not just about talking therapy. You know,
Yeah,
there are things like breath work and movement, and there are things like emotions being stuck in the body.
yeah,
So there are different avenues that people can go down. And then also, yeah, people do their best, and yeah, our parents do want the best for us, and yeah, like being divorced, like may be the best thing. It's not about them doing anything to us necessarily,
yeah,
and at the same time, it's worth acknowledging that like the parenting, and this is not just a personal thing, parenting in general is really in I guess from what I've learned in recent times from Mark Passio, and the state of morality in the world is it, and I know people might like have take offense to this, but generally speaking, parenting has been done very poorly,
yeah,
and have like really fucked up people like, in a number of ways. And that doesn't mean that you're a victim, and it doesn't mean that you don't take personal responsibility, because the whole point of this is that you take personal responsibility. You don't just blame your parents and all those kind of things.
yeah,
But just because you know your parents love you and they do their best, it also doesn't mean that like things haven't affected different people in different
yeah,
ways. You know, and it's also, you know, just because people don't want to acknowledge it, and oh well, you know, growing up in those times, those people did their best and blah blah blah. It's like, you know, people have to really see things for how they are before they can deal with it. And okay, if you want to like suck it up, big boy, and just get on with life and, go down the pub and slam some beers down your face so you don't have to deal with it. That's one way. And I'm not saying it's like, so black and white, but, you know, there's a reason why like people have addictions. There's a reason why, people aren't necessarily like moving forward in life or dealing with things and all of that kind of thing. But then there's also part of this is this like rites of passage, and like, yeah, I guess I kind of wanted to get all this kind of stuff out there. It's not, and again, it's not about blaming anyone. It's not about like what was like done to us from parents or anything like that. That's not really the point that I'm getting at here. It's really like more so to do with like shadow work, realizing what's going on inside you, what you're getting triggered by, so you can work on it. And it's not about like wallowing in the victim mentality, but if like, if you're finding yourself like reacting to something, or you're communicating something poorly, or someone says something on a certain subject, and then you react in a way that's like not optimal, or you're creating distortions in your field, or you're having bad relations with different kinds of people, then these are all signs that you can like really turn an inward eye to what's going on in you, and not to be like, oh, poor me, look at all my trauma, I'm a victim, but actually, with love and with care, looking down the barrel at like and being like, hey, listen, bro, you're an ego. Hey, listen, bro, like you're reacting in a poor way. Hey, listen, bro, like you're not, communicating well. And it's not about like belligerentating yourself or like putting yourself down, but you do have to see things for how they are. And if you do have traumas, because actually, I know it's like a word that's loaded, but most people are really fucking traumatized in all kinds of ways, and they don't even want to acknowledge it or deal with it. And it's not about like, oh, bro, just to go talk about it and you'll be fine. It's not like that. But once you actually see things for how they are, you can deal with it and you can move it out of the body. You can go to, you can, think differently. If you have different thoughts, you'll create a different outcome so you aren't a victim, or you can do movement, or you can do breath work to help shift it out of your energy field. But if you're bullshitting yourself to being like, oh, well, my parents did the best. And I'm not saying this like to have a, about what you said or anything, but I'm just kind of making like a wider point that we can kind of shift out of these things once we kind of see things fully. And if we are, and we kind of touch on this kind of masculine aspect, the Renaissance part of it, and doing the great work and the shadow work, and this, and some of these other themes around plant medicine and rites of passage and all of that kind of thing, this is all coming to the, these kind of all coalesce. And if you, it's not about like, you don't have to go and like build a house for you to feel like a man. Like that comes from within, and that comes from like having like no self-loathing in natural law. It comes from like having that confidence within and being like, okay, if I want to learn a skill, I can. And if I'm traumatized or if I'm feeling insecure, I can just, start small and I can build the skills that I need to learn, or I can acknowledge where my weak points are. The way that the world is these days, in a lot of ways, is like people like hyper specialized, and they're like ADD, and they're like, basically like on the spectrum like different ways. And part of when I came to this land, for example, my kind of lens wasn't like, I'm going to learn all of these different skills because I want to, be on the land, and I want to like, be on the tractor, and I want to do all of these things. I actually, my intent was, I want to make all of these things happen because this is the life that I want to live. And I'm not going to be the guy that gets swallowed up by all of these jobs that I don't want to do. And so I actually came in with it like, I want to delegate, and I want to put in these different systems where I'm not just being like swallowed up by it all. And you could argue that that's not necessarily like the right approach, but yeah, like I also recognize the error in my ways, where of course I can be more hands-on, and of course I can learn more skills for myself, and that is possible. And so I also want to like impress upon people, like, it's like, you're not any less manly if you can't go and build a house. But if you are like beating yourself up because you can't build a house, you can learn how to do that if that's what you really want to do.
Yeah. Well said, man. Well said. Yeah, like, yeah, no, that's it, dude. It really is about the like the inner work, and it does, like, for like just sort of thinking out loud now, like off the cuff, but it does to me, like that's the most important thing, hey, is like recognizing that your spirit and like your inner sort of monologue, or like the things that you like tell yourself on a daily basis, and you're just like how you view yourself is so important. Like it really is. Like if you can get that bit right, then, and also be like, have humility, not like, try to not have a big ego, or like, like, cause I don't know, I feel like, tell me if you think I've got this wrong, but I feel like it's like almost like impossible to have no ego, but to just be aware of it and to not let that get the better of you is kind of like, that's you know, that's ideal. That's sort of like the best we can do.
Yeah.
And to check it when it gets out of line, or when you let your nose get out of joint, and you sort of, like you said, like you react to something, and then and maybe it was an emotional thing, and then but then having enough humility to go like, oh fuck, okay, I've got to check that, because I'll let my ego get the better of me there. Yeah, like that. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. So it was rambling a little bit, but like that is that's important, man. Like to just have sight of all those things, and recognize that like the your internal monologue and your spirit is like most important, and that's kind of where it should start, and then you can kind of like extrapolate out from there, and yeah,
Yeah,
don't know what
beautifully
else to
said,
say.
man. Because beautifully said. As simple as it is, um, because first comes thought,
Yeah,
and then comes, the action and the outcome to relate it to natural law principles. And once we have a different way of thinking, then the world around us, will change. And so, um, yeah, I mean, I think that that's kind of what I wanted to really get at. And again, like you also nailed it, it's not about eliminating an ego. That's not the point. It's realizing when we kind of acting through that rather than in a heartfelt way. And then also like the care, like the care that we give ourselves. And I'm mentioning self-loathing as a reason, because that's also in the natural law field, is that that's one of the ways that you can recognize that you're out of alignment with natural law, is that you know like self-loathing is not like, if you're, it's yes, okay, we can give care to things in the world, to so we can become more objectively moral, but we also need to give care to ourselves, and not in like a wishy-washy, oh, I'm not going to do hard work because I just need a self-care day and all of those kind of things. You really have to balance the masculine and the feminine. Like I've like swung in like considerable directions on both of this, so I feel like I can give a pretty good way to deal with it. Like I feel like I've been like hyper masculine previously, and then I kind of feel like, yeah, I feel like I've probably um, can relate to being too much in my feminine as well. Um, and so it's like there's also like the distorted feminine and the distorted masculine, and so realizing what's healthy, like what's like, power versus force, like, like there's like being present and just being focused on the task and kind of taking action, and then there's like the kind of the force, like making it happen, and like kind of, like the pushing, rather than just kind of like, acting from like an internal power and kind of like, going through it that way. And if you're kind of acting with force, then that can lead to burnout. And it's like, they're kind of like, I've just got to get after it, bro. And I've just got to hustle and make it happen. And it's like, I did that so much in my 20s, especially in relation to, you know, creating a business, and kind of was, successful in that regard. And yes, I can bring that into the present and have more of that energy for sure. At the same time, it did not serve me at all to be like pushing and like forcing the matter all of the time. And that's where we need these feminine principles to relax and to surrender and to go with the flow at the same time. And it's about, being in the divine masculine and divine feminine rather than the distorted versions of both. And then also, like, one of the last points that I just wanted to kind of touch on as well is that we also do have a loneliness epidemic. And so with the nature of technology where it's going as well, there are a lot of people that are lonely out there. So shout out to all of those people. Tune in to the Great Retardation, and we are your global friends. If you do just need to hear like some friendly, consistent voices, of course, we are with you. You are loved. Like, yada yada yada. But like the point being that like especially with men and white men as well, they're as much as people don't want to talk about it, there's actually like a super high suicide rate in males around the world right now, and so it's also like we talk about like the state of morality and freedom in the world, and it's a sure sign that things aren't in great alignment. That if the male population are committing suicide, and kind of the questions on like why that is the case, and so I'm saying all of that with a positive message, and that is that you can do it, to have willpower, to have the ability to think new thoughts and the ability to take action based on those thoughts, and that to even if you're at a state in your life where this is my TED talk now, but like there is a pathway for people to get through this messiness, and there is a pathway to align your actions with natural law. And so I wanted to get all of this out there, even though some of it's personal and some of it applies to everyone, because like, who are we to sit here and be like, hey bro, learn the natural law principles and act with objective morality, if you're not actually like taking note of what you're doing in your actual life, because then you're just a fraud. You're sitting here pretending like you've got the answers, and I've spoken to this person, and I went to Egypt, and like I've done so many ceremonies, and like I live on sacred land, and like and like I'm saying those, like I'm calling myself out on my own bullshit, because that's a story and a narrative, and also like you need to actually live in the present moment in like a way that is congruent with natural law. And so I just wanted to like shout out to the people that there is a pathway through this, and a lot of it is to do with shadow work, and a lot of it is messy, and also you can do it bit by bit.
Beautiful, man. And I think the heart of that message there that you just so beautifully just spoke is to just, we've got to be honest always. We've got to be honest with the people around us, and most importantly, we've got to be honest with ourselves. And I've fallen into this trap plenty of times, where like I'm just not doing that, not being honest with myself first and foremost. And so even if sometimes it can be hard. Sometimes you've got to look yourself in the mirror and just go like, I fucked up. Like I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have said that, or or I need to go do that, and I need to go say that, and I'm not, like I'm avoiding it, whatever it is. But yeah, it's like, it's so important, man. And that's it, dude. It's like, yeah, we're doing like our best. We're doing like our best to do the great work, as Passio would say, and to talk about natural law and try and like get it out to as many people as possible, and to get people to also learn about natural law, and then align themselves with morality, and then go off themselves and go teach other people. But it's like, yeah, like we have to truly live it, like you're saying, man. And I think we do that. I think we do a good job of that. But there's always room for improvement, and also it's you know, like just for me personally, it's like I'm not always on the track. Like and then when you fall off the track, you've got to get back on there, and it starts with just being honest with yourself, and especially when you have fallen off the track and you to go, nah, fuck it, I got to fucking get discipline again, and not do, you know, not do things that I know I shouldn't be doing. You know, like get back on it, and yeah, that's that really.
And if people want further information, you can, I believe the guy's name is Chris Nelson, Kris, and from evolveconsciousness.org. He's got great material on natural law, really fantastic, and a lot of he's been at this a long time. I believe since like 2013, around that time, and he's got a couple of episodes on "Don't Lie to Yourself" that have just come out, and and then there's also the End Evil podcast as well, which is another one that I'll shout out along with Will Keller. You know, I believe it's Chris Nelson that's doing the Great Work Launchpad, and so there's really fantastic resources in there. So you know, that's kind of some of the things that I wanted to share. And you know, even we can be super successful in some areas of our life and be so good, bro. At the same time, we can also be super shitty and like, you know, going through the muck. And so I just wanted to tell everyone that you're not alone, and that you know, the one great work is hard. It is not easy, and with willpower, over time and resilience, you know, we will come through this together, and this is how we do it. So thank you for coming to my TED talk.
So
No,
good,
but
bro.
yeah, I mean, I am serious. Like, we do have to bring some lightheartedness to it as well, because
So I've got to have a
it
laugh.
isn't all heavy. Yeah, yeah, of course. We've got to laugh along the way, brother. That's it, dude.
Okay, can I
And that's what.
can I show you one thing,
Yeah, you
dude?
go, dude.
Actually, this is just,
Yeah.
it's only like a minute clip, but I thought this was really good. I don't know who this lady is. She was on Rogan's podcast at some point. Clearly, she's talking to Rogan in this clip, but because like I know, like obviously, like, you know, we're sitting here talking about all this stuff, so it's like I'd be a hypocrite to say it's not helpful to talk about things. But like, I have heard people say in the past to me that when I have spoken about some of these like real things we're talking about here, and like issues and, you know, like traumas that you may have and that I have or whatever. And I have heard, like, I have had friends say to me like, oh, you should go like talk to a professional, like you should go talk to a therapist, you know, or a psychologist. And like, I've never done that. Like, and I'm not belittling anyone who does want to go do that. And I do think that there is value in doing that as well. Like, I'm not trying to diminish that, but I just know that there are people out there that think that like that's the answer for everything, is to go see a therapist. And anyway, like, I'll just play this clip, but I thought this was pretty, like, this really resonated with me. So let me just go over there and do that.
Okay. While you're doing that, I will say that
Yeah.
in general, if you're looking at like mainstream health and mental health, like, there is a lot of fluff, especially in psychology and all of these different things. And so, on one level, like, I hear and definitely agree with you. And at the same time, talk therapy is one method of many, and it may or may not be required. Um, but like, in the typical kind of institutional settings or whatever, you know, I generally don't go in that direction for anything.
Yeah, like, I'd rather
But
talk to you, or like, you know, like someone who I actually like love and care about, than some stranger. That's kind of just like my initial like instinct,
yeah.
I guess, you know. Yeah.
Also, different things work for different people, and so I guess I wanted to bring maybe like a multi-dimensional or a full scope picture to it, is because I do think that talking therapy has this role. It's just not the be all and end all, and it's also, it can be beneficial to talk with professionals, and then there's also more alternative ways that you can do that talking, but then if you apply it through breath work or movement or other things, you can find ways to, it's just talking alone doesn't necessarily solve it. But I'm not an expert. I have been in and around these kind of things because I have been to like a lot of different retreats, and different things in these kind of different fields. But yeah, I tend to agree with you, and at the same time, there's many different tools, and it's one tool of many, and it can be helpful at different times, but it's not the be all and end all. Is kind of what I have to say on that. But let's listen to the video.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. Let's do it. All right.
Wow. I never really considered that until your book. Until I heard the title of your book and I read the synopsis of it. I never really considered it. I never considered that thinking about your problems all the time and talking about your problems all the time literally make the problems grow.
That's right. I mean, it's the number one symptom of depression is what they call rumination, this pathological obsessing over your pain.
Yeah.
That's why stuff like exercise, that's one of the reasons, aside from chemical reasons, one of the reasons that doing anything, that running errands is good for your mental health, getting out of your house and accomplishing anything is good for you. But sitting around talking and thinking about your problems, that's a bad habit. And the best cognitive behavioral therapists and others, the dialectical behavioral therapists, the ones who do really well with depression, the first thing they do is try to break that bad pattern. But a lot of therapists just indulge it.
So that's pretty much it, man. Yeah, I don't know. I just like seen that come across my feed a couple of weeks ago, and I just thought, yeah, like and also particularly because I've recently had some people who I really do respect and love and care about say that to me, like that, like this is what they do. They go to see a therapist like once a week or twice a week, and have been doing so for years. And that, not saying I should go do exactly that, but I should at least go maybe just have a conversation with someone. And yeah, I never really felt like I was like at the point where I needed that or anything, but anyway, like I just always have had like instinctually that's been my knee jerk to that kind of like seeking a professional in that way. But again, like I don't view myself as like someone who has, I don't know, I just don't think I really need that, but I'm not diminishing other people who they could get a lot of benefit from that if they have like more serious issues than me.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess what she said is absolutely true. And the other side of that is dismissing things and not talking about them, right?
Yeah.
So with all of these things, it's trying to find, the I don't like to say that's like say the middle path, but like, it's not helpful to not talk about things and to not acknowledge them, and it's also not helpful to just talk about it and just constantly ruminate and to go around in circles. And then it's also, people may get benefit from talk therapy, and I do feel like it's got its place. And at the same time, you need to find a way to process what's going on and to kind of take action in a way that like essentially deals with things. Like if you're not getting like resolution or closure on some of these things and you're just talking about the same thing over and over, that's not necessarily helpful. But if you're dismissing it, that's not necessarily helpful either. So I'm kind of saying the same thing. But yeah, this is kind of yeah, I mean, I think we've kind of said our points here, but there are a lot of different tools out there for people, and I didn't necessarily want this to make this like a mental health and trauma based kind of a thing, but at the same time, it is like all of these things like that she mentioned, to relate it to natural law is that like and what you're saying about and like with the principle of care and the way that like our spirit and the way that we think about ourselves and the way that like we have these thoughts, like if you are able to, if you're like overwhelmed by like your mental space and you're thinking negatively about yourself, like that's going to create self-loathing. And so you may need to go talk to someone to clear some stuff, or you may need to do some other use some other tools that are available, or like go and get some exercise, or whatever your thing is, like not one particular thing. So then you can have the space to have, to receive some fresh energy and some new thoughts, so that you can create, so you can kind of see things from a different perspective, and to create new outcomes and create new neural pathways. And that's where things like mushrooms can help as well. And that's, with like that, and that's what plant medicines help with in the limbic brain. And that's why psychedelics have been so helpful for me, like on that journey, is because it can act like, and mushrooms specifically, psychedelic or not, they can actually help create new neural pathways and new ways of thinking. And then so you can get out of things like thought loops and all of that kind of thing. So we can pick this up at a later date, but I think that I've said everything that I want to say for now. And like that does get into this kind of wider plant medicine discussion that we can get into at a later date as well, because one part of it is the ceremony part, and another part is the integration part of it. And it's the integration part, the implementation into your daily life when you're away from the retreat center, that is as important or more important than the actual ceremonies themselves. And I think that the plant medicine ceremonies can be glorified, and people can come out of it with of all things, can come out of it with hyper egos as well, because part of it is that you do get a glimpse, or you are able to see more fully the greater multidimensionality of life and your higher self, and become more connected with nature and all of those kind of things. And when you're like feeling so connected to the divine, or however you want to phrase it, and you kind of realize the true like potential of humans and your true potential, people can kind of misconstrue that a little bit and kind of start shoving it down people's throats, or they start doing these like business plant medicine mixture things where you just got to go drink the medicine, bro. And it's like,
It's got to come do some
it's
ayahuasca in Mexico,
yeah,
bro.
it's really off-putting. And I do know a guy.
Come on a
Yeah,
corporate tour, and we'll do some ayahuasca for
yeah, yeah, yeah,
$15,000. It'll be great.
yeah. Just go drink the medicine, bro. And like, I am a real stickler for tradition, and also for like, how would you say it, like a clear space, like a sacred space, when you're doing that, because it's very, very vulnerable when you open up in that world. And you've got to be with people that you trust, or that have got your back, and that are very experienced in that, and that you're in a nurturing environment. And I would say that almost all of the places that, and not to like poo-poo it, but like the majority are involved in things that I would say that are out of integrity. And there's a lot, way more than you would think, especially in Peru, especially in Iquitos and those kind of places, like where like ayahuasca tourism is rampant. It's black magic galore, and people don't want to ignore it. And even the places which are like number one, which is like, oh, this is the safest, blah, like the greatest place to go, and blah blah blah, they're still like, I know enough to know that these guys are practicing the dark arts, as much as people don't want to admit it. And so it is, yeah, I do have like a lot to share in that regard. I'm not saying that from an ego point of view. I'm saying that from like, I've gone through the ringer, like I've gone through the terror. I've gone through like, the ego death. I've gone through the dark night of the soul. I'm honestly not to talk about that because I'm so evolved or anything like that. I'm saying that because I know how hard it is. I'm saying that because there are of many things that I've come across, that I would not be happy with referring people to, or for them to be opened up to. And so, and also that you have to go back to your life after these said retreats, and actually apply it. Because what tends to happen is you get all of these downloads, you get all of these inspirations, and then you're going back to your life, and the situation around you is still the same family, the same friends, the same whatever's going on, and then people's like light dims, and then they kind of fall back to how it was, and then like then they kind of use it as a bit of a crutch. Oh, I've got to go, ask the medicine again, and it's like there's no point in going back to get the same answer that you already know. You've actually got to apply what you've already been told. And so, yeah, I did quite a decent amount for like your average punter of that, but I spent like the last 5 years actually in some sorts just kind of like applying that, it's not the part that like gets a lot of attention because it's not as fantastical. Like people want to hear about what aliens did you connect with, what's really going on in the cosmos and all of that, but actually it takes you like on a very deep inner journey to the deepest part of yourself, and shines. One of the plants that I dieted was a plant called Noya Rao, and that glows in the dark, and it's very, very rare. And one of the things that it does is it shines a divine light or a very bright light on your deepest, darkest shadow. And it's like, hey, have you seen this? And it's like, actually, no. And so, for people, it doesn't matter what modality they're doing, that can be confronting for people, but also, with the shadow work, like the way, like the answer is to go through this, as hard as that may be. And there are, these are all tools. There's not one particular one. It's not plant medicine, and Passio talks a lot about it. There is the limbic brain, and there is kind of neural pathways. It doesn't have to be psychedelic. You can work with bush flower essences. You can work with talking therapy. You can work with, just fitness, or just like more normally kind of stuff. It doesn't, pick your flavor, but the way out is through, essentially. And yeah, for the longest time I was like, I don't have a shadow. Like I was like, oh, I don't really do the shadow thing. And it's like, yeah, I was just actually quite unaware. And it's like, oh, I've already woken up, and it's like, ego talking. I've already done so much. Like I know all this stuff, and it's like, actually, bro, you've got a lot of shit to work through, just like the rest of everyone else too. So, yeah, I'm feeling grateful for being able to speak about this, and I've been learning a lot from the natural law community actually as well. So like hats off to those people that I mentioned before, Chris Jansen, Chris Nelson, and Evil Podcast, Will Keller, Mark Passio, of course. But there's some great people that are really teaching some of these subjects to do with natural law and what it really means to align your actions with it. And so as maybe as this may not look so glorious to people, and like, okay, like, why are you talking about all this shit, bro? I'm here for the fucking 9/11 and 0 point energy, and I'm here for, like, tell me what's going on with the aliens and all of that. That's also conspiratainment, and so this is the great work, bro.
Fantastic, dude. Hey, do you have you ever shared any of these of our Great Retardation episodes with your natural law chats?
I post most of them. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool,
People
man.
People really love the intro.
Oh, that's so good to hear. That's so good. Oh, awesome, man. That's so beautiful, dude. That's
Yeah.
I've got a lot to learn, honestly, man. Like, I'm very naive when it comes to plant medicines and things. I know you said like that's not all the be all and end all. It's not like you necessarily have to go down that road, but I have dabbled in certain medicines and certain plants. So it's I'm totally open to all that. Actually, young Tobias from the Waking World podcast, before he headed back over to WA, as a parting gift around Christmas time, he gave me, what did he give me? He gave me some like, oh dude, I don't know what I did with the bottle. Maybe Anita threw it out, but it was like this like masculine essence. It was like this like a thing with a dropper, and you put it on your tongue. It was meant to do something to do with your masculinity and enhance it more. And then what else? He gave me some mushroom chocolate as well, which I've still got some of that in my freezer. So maybe, but it's not the same mushrooms I think you're talking about. These are like actual, like the magic mushrooms or whatever. What else did he give me? Gave me a couple of things. It was so lovely of him, man. He's like, just
Yeah.
very generous.
He's a great guy.
He's a great guy,
Yeah.
man. Big heart, that fella. Shout out to Toby and Dale, Waking World podcast. Check those guys out. But yeah, but anyways,
Especially if you want to learn about the occult. I need to go through this stuff, to be honest. But yeah, some great knowledge there on the occult.
well, I know that. Yeah, absolutely, man. And I know that you're going back and like going back all through Mark Passio's work, starting with episode 1 and working your way forward.
I'm at 93 now.
Well, you know what? It's worth doing the same. And Waking World have probably, like, of their actual episodes, I think they've only got about 60, but then they've also they've got like a bonus Shiz segment, which there's about 60 of those as well. And then Dale himself just does an Is It News segment, and there's a bunch of those. But so all up, they've probably done about 200-300 episodes, but of their just episode catalog, it's about 60, and it's worth going back to episode 1 and working your way through. I got to about episode 8. Should get back on that bandwagon and continue. But dude, like, even like, so number 1, so the first like 7 that I listened to are just incredible, man. And it's like Toby really fleshing out for the first time publicly his knowledge on the occult and these different occult organizations and Aleister Crowley and all this stuff. But like episode 1, the audio quality isn't that great. Probably similar with Mark Passio, like as they progress, move forward, they get a bit better with microphones and technique and stuff like that. But even still, man, like, it's like, yeah, I remember actually when I was doing, and I'm looking forward to coming back out and doing more work for you. But when I was doing a lot of work for you last year, I was when I think back to listening to those episodes, I remember I was doing heaps of brush cutting out on the mountain there, getting in touch with the spirits and all that stuff, and brown snakes. But yeah,
Welcome to the hairy man.
it's probably one or two of those guys that brushed past me unwittingly. But yeah. So that's what I think about when I was. But anyway, it's fucking, yeah. He's got a lot of knowledge. He's done a lot of reading. That guy loves reading books. Young Tobias Nuttall. And yeah, he's a great resource for anyone who's interested in learning the aspects of the occult and secret societies.
All right, but I'm going to love you and leave you. I just wanted to reaffirm that I really love what and I'll re-listen to it. I really love what you're saying. I think there was like some inspiration there about what you was talking about, the spirit and the way that we think of ourselves, and that was kind of like a very natural transmission, bro. But yeah, great episode, and it's been great to be back doing this on Friday the 13th. And really, lots of love to you, brother, and to everyone out there. And the great retardation is upon us, and it's up to you what you're going to do about it.
Much love, brother. Right back at you, man. And I really appreciated everything you brought to today's discussion, man. It was very insightful, and I really appreciate it. And it was, just love you, bro. Care about you, and let's do more of these. All right, peace out, bro. Talk to you very soon. Oh, and if you wanna like and share and leave a comment and let us know what you think, follow us on X. What's our X? Hang on, because Cosmic
Great Retards,
the great retards on X. Wow. Oh, hang on. Sorry. What am I doing? Cosmic Surfer is really he's the one who's kind of
don't say that, bro. I've been in stealth mode, and if there's stuff that people don't like, I can say it's you.
It could be Cosmic Surfer. It could be the Arabian Pleb. You'll never know. But anyway, there's a lot of good stuff happening over there. So please follow us on X at the Great Retards. It's a hoot of a time. It's a good time over there. All right, bro. We'll leave it there, and much love, man. Talk to you soon.
Yep.
No. Thank you. I got to get smoother at doing this.
And here's what it is. This is actually what the true great work is now. It is the arduous task of influencing other people to go through the very same process of change, of positive change in consciousness that you have gone through. It is to help them to realize that in supporting and condoning the legitimacy of authority and government, in other words, man's law, that what they have actually been supporting and condoning is the legitimacy of slavery. Truth is objective. That means that it's not dependent upon the perceptions of human beings. No one wants to hear that. That is a direct assault, a direct frontal assault on the human ego. What truth is that which does not waver. It's there. It's always been there. It's always going to be there. Nothing anybody does can change what has happened. I'm talking about the events that have taken place in the past and are taking place in the present. That's all. And guess what? That's all the truth is. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that.